Thank you, Heartsong Choir. You know, in a way, that's my talk today. Think about Louis Armstrong when he wrote that song. African American at a time when African Americans were deeply discriminated against. He could have been bitter, could have been hardened. Instead, he comes up with this beautiful song. What do I see? I'm not looking at this over here. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at this, the beauty of life right here. Okay? And it's a wonderful lesson for us in what am I seeing? At any time in our existence, there is ugliness to be seen and there is beauty to be seen. What do I want to put my focus and attention on? And what we teach in this teaching is that whatever I put more of my attention on is what increases in my life. So what do I put my attention on? I love that song because of that. So our talk today, we're working, of course, on this year-long theme of creating a world that works for all. And of course, this reminds us, what do we have to do first? We have to see and believe in and notice that it already exists, that there is a world that works for all as a possibility that already exists in form, right? Okay? It's already here in our minds. If we're focused on what doesn't work, we're going to get more of what doesn't work. Okay? So we're going to shift our consciousness. So today's theme is consciousness creates reality. Consciousness creates reality. And the quote from Ernest Holmes we're using that kind of behind this is, we believe that the manifest universe is the body of God. We believe that the manifest universe is the body of God. And that's one of our core statements. It's one of our core statements in metaphysics, that consciousness creates reality. And it's also one of our most controversial, right? Because we sit there and go, well, how can my consciousness... you don't understand. There's reality. I want you to let me tell you about my reality, and my consciousness did not create that reality, okay? Anybody ever hear that? Anybody ever... I love Diana's talking about wherever she went to, talking to herself. We've talked to ourselves like that maybe once in a while. So I want to kind of put this in perspective. So consciousness, when we're talking consciousness, capital C consciousness, okay, the infinite consciousness of the universe creates reality. It creates reality. It has to create reality, or we wouldn't be able to perceive a reality that we can all agree upon. We wouldn't even be able to share a world together if there wasn't something that was there behind it all, within it all, that is creating and is being it. And that consciousness that creates reality, it's not that it created it a long time ago and set it off in motion. It's constantly creating reality. It's a constant creation. It is ongoing right here, right now. Okay? Yes? Yes. Okay. So all reality that could ever be, is now, and ever has been, is already created. All of it is already present and available. Just like this piano over here has all the music that could ever be played on a piano. The potential for that is there right now, right? Everything from Beethoven to Jerry Lee Lewis, to Elton John, to anybody else you can think of. The potential for that is in that piano, right? Okay? It can be played. It's all available right now. The reality is all available. But we have to do a couple things, don't we? See, we have to choose what music we're going to play. I can walk over to that, well, I can ask somebody who actually knows how to play the piano to walk over to that piano and play a dirge, a really downer song, whatever. Or I can ask them to go and play something beautiful and wonderful and uplifting. They'll both have an effect on me, right? Because music affects us. Secondly, nothing happens until what? Somebody plays. That piano has an infinite, almost, resource or availability of music there. including music that has not even been written yet, and music that was written so long ago it's now forgotten. It's all there, but nothing happens until we sit down and play the piano, until we hit a key, strike a chord, vibrate a string. Nothing happens until then. So the question is, are we playing with reality? Are we playing with our reality? Or are we just kind of taking whatever's there and sitting around being spectators? Consciousness has and is creating reality. This is in Isaiah in the Bible where it says that before they have called, I have answered. That's that same consciousness. Whatever prayer you can put out, it's already answered. In Zen, there's a saying that you can't ask a question unless somewhere and somehow you already know the answer to the question. You may not have it consciously known yet, but you couldn't even conceive of the question unless the answer was there presenting itself to you. Okay? So we can't engage reality and find it lacking. It's already there. We don't experience it, however, until we choose to experience it. You ever been around somebody that you're looking at the same thing, sort of, you think? And they're seeing one thing and you're seeing something completely different? Yeah? You've been around that? This is why eyewitnesses are unreliable. It was a blue van. No, it was a purple van. No, it was a red van. No, it was a white, sports car. It is because we're looking at things and seeing something different. We don't experience reality until we choose to, until we observe it, until we look at it. This is basic quantum physics too, by the way. And we experience that reality through our choices. You've met people, I know nobody here is like that, but you've met people that see the downside of life all the time, right? Yeah. I talked about how 30 years ago I was the kind of person that if you walked up to me and asked me how I was doing, it was just, I'm just getting by, I'm just hanging in there. And it wasn't even said with that much of an up energy, okay? I'm getting by. I'm all right. Just hanging in there. Okay? And guess what I got more of? Just getting by, barely making it, just hanging in there. Hanging is a tough choice, let me tell you. I love that. Years ago, there was that poster of that cat. Oh, yeah. I'm hanging in there. So just as we can't play simultaneously all the music on this piano that it can play, we have to choose the piece we want to hear. And we can choose it successively, but we have to choose what we want to hear on it. I'm sure if I asked Judy, would you please go play all the music that's available on that piano, it would be kind of a cacophony, right? And she couldn't do it, and nobody else could either. So we have to choose what part of it we want to play with. What part of reality do we want to play with? See, the infinite has infinite sadness and misery to infinite bliss and joy available and all points in between. Where do I want to play? Where do you want to play? Yeah, I want to play on the bliss side. Thank you very much, I don't want to play on the misery side. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt.
It's a dust rag now.
What's that?
It's a dust rag.
Yeah, it's a dust rag now. Actually, the dust rag wore out. I threw it away. The physicist Freeman Dyson tells us that matter in quantum mechanics is not inert substance, but an active agent constantly making choices between alternate possibilities. That's matter. That's at the very level of matter. The smallest level that we can think of, the most minute level we can think of existence, is still making choices. He goes on to say, it appears that mind, as manifested by the capacity to make choices, is to some extent inherent in every electron. Contemplate that for a moment. The chair you're sitting on has a life in it, has the power to make choices in it. The walls, the ground. Your shoes are choosing to stay on your feet right now. Thank you. Unless you've made the choice to kick them off and relax here, but, which is just fine too. Check with your neighbors around you. Life is the ability to choose. Life is about choice. Okay? And so we get to choose what part of reality, what part of this infinite possibility we get to play with. And it's our choice that kind of cuts out that mold. Ernest Holmes makes the example of creating a mold in an iron factory. You know, you have this melted, hot metal, and it will go into any shape you want to. You create the mold for it to go into. What mold are you creating? What molds are you creating in your life for it to go into? What shapes? What forms? We get to play with that. And then our choices, because here's the kicker, our choices not only affect us in our lives, it's not just me, but guess what? I'm interconnected with all life. There's only one life. And so our choices resonate throughout the whole universe. I think it was Alan Watts who said there's not a baby burps in Mill Valley that doesn't affect the most distant star. Okay? Whatever we do in life, last week we worked with the idea of that interconnected net of Indra. Remember? Those of you who were here last week. We looked at and experienced that, guided meditation to experience the interconnectedness of all of life. Everything in life is interconnected. So whatever I do touches all of life. When Jesus says, whatever you do to these, the least of these, you do also unto me. Whatever I'm putting out, anywhere I'm putting it out, I'm affecting everything else in the universe, including myself. So all of this is part of the body of God. I want to also mention that there's a flavor to this consciousness. It's not just this dumb, inert consciousness. It has a flavor to it. Shoreward tells us that life is here for the purpose of enjoyment. Life is here to enjoy itself. Sri Aurobindo, who was one of Ernest Holmes' late mentors late in his life, or inspirations late in his life, says creation is for the delight of God. So we are here to live lives of joy, happiness, delight, to enjoy life. That's what we're here for. That's what life is here for. I mentioned last week, that a friend of mine wrote a book, Show God a Good Time. You're God informed. Show God a good time. Have fun. On the way out, somebody told me after the first service that the country of Bhutan has as its motto, happiness. Happiness. Wouldn't you like to live in a country where the theme is happiness? Okay? Ours is freedom, by the way, which is a pretty darn good theme. But happiness, I love that idea. The Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, most of us are asleep, and most of us are having nightmares in that sleep. Most of us are living in a nightmare. So how we use our consciousness, what aspect of God we choose to play in, what aspect of God we choose to experience determines our experience and our reality of life. And that's why it sometimes appears very real. Now guess where most of those choices are made? They're made unconsciously, right? See, I'm going to do this because everybody will ask me on the way out, what's that happening on your wrist, David? That's called poison oak. I got it last Sunday or whatever. Now, I did not consciously walk around going, I'd really like to have the experience of poison oak this week. Never had it before. I want to try it out. I'm here for the infinite experience of life. Let's try poison oak. No, I didn't do that. But I was here last week during the All Save a Day, and I noticed a couple people mentioned that there was poison oak all over the property. And I'm guessing that somewhere in there I brushed up against either it or somebody who had it on them and got this. I have no idea otherwise. It wasn't the dog, because Cynthia would be covered with poison ivy or poison oak from the dog, because she handles the dog a lot more than I do. Wasn't working my yard before I would do this. So it's like I have no idea where it came from. It's a gift from God somewhere along the line. But somewhere in there, I opened up my consciousness to having that experience. Okay? And I didn't do it consciously. So most of our choices come from I love the term from Don Miguel Ruiz, who calls it the hypnotism of life, thank you, the domestication of the planet. We all were hypnotized early on. Our attention was hooked, and we were hypnotized, and we were told by people who loved and cared about us, but who were themselves hypnotized by people who were themselves hypnotized generations back, how life is, who I am, what other people are like, and how things work. We were taught all that before we were 4 years old. And guess what? Most of us didn't have the ability at 4 years old to say, wait a minute, I disagree with that. And if we did, it's called the terrible twos, I think, at one point. No, I disagree with that. Let me remind you that A, I'm a whole lot bigger than you. B, it's my house, it's my rent, it's my food, and you will do it the way that I say to do it, right? Anybody ever hear that, Tana? As long as you live in my house, under my roof, it's my rules. And other wonderful, loving things like that. So you learn not to question, I went to Catholic school. They said, God is all loving. Anybody who isn't Catholic is going to hell. I said, that doesn't work for me. And they said, take it on faith, or else you're going to hell. And hell is kind of scary when you're a 7-year-old kid, right? It's an infinite fire, and yeah. So most of us were not told at an early age that we're God-informed. How many were? I'm sorry, somebody was told at early age you were God-informed. Good for you. Most of us were not told that we're free to choose and that we create our life and our reality by our choices. Most of us were not told that the purpose of life was enjoyment. I love my friend Edwin Gaines, who's a prosperity teacher, says, this is the party planet, and I'm here to do my part. How about if you had that attitude, right? Wouldn't that be fun to live life with? This is the party planet, and I'm here to do my part? Okay. We probably weren't taught that we're all one. We probably weren't taught that. And so we have to learn that. We have to start to come around to that. We have to start to choose to experience something different than what we were raised with. And it takes time to turn that ship, doesn't it? We're so used to, I think of it as a big ship in the ocean that's going one way, and it has this inertia to it, right? And it's going to keep on going that way until there's a lot of force put on it to turn the ship in a different direction. And that's a lot of how our habits, our thoughts, our feelings, our unconscious choices are habitual. They're just programmed. We've been doing them, and we've been doing it so long that we don't even think about them. There's a wonderful book, we were just talking about that this morning, called Do You Quantum Think? And the premise of this book is we all think within a system, and we don't even know the system that we think within. And the system of thought itself guides our thoughts. And we think we're free to make choices with our thoughts, but we're not, because we're still caught up in this system. See, 200 years ago, people did not use a computer metaphor, did they? To say the brain is like a computer. Nobody said that. Maybe the brain is like a watch. It's a mechanical thing because they could understand that. 1,000 years ago, nobody used that metaphor because there weren't any machines like that, right? Okay, so we have these systems of thought that today are normal. This is why it's so hard to see what Jesus was really saying in the Bible and other people of that era, because Jesus is talking to first century Jews in a small area, right? Okay? He's not talking to 20th and 21st century scientifically based Western people. But we take that consciousness and try to apply it. This is where some of those churches like to cherry pick, various verses out of the Bible and say, and what they usually say is not we should follow this. They usually say you should follow this. This is where they get in trouble, is they don't understand the consciousness and the context in which that existed, in which it was created, and which at one time it made sense, but it doesn't anymore. So we have to open up to being present with what is. We have to be able to learn to experience life as it is, and we have to open up our consciousness to say, you know what? I don't know how life is. Show me. Let me learn. Let me learn more. And most of us as adults, we don't like to go learning things, right? I'm looking at my friend Shari in here who teaches a watercolor class here. And it challenges certain people to go to the watercolor class. Some people it challenges so much that they won't even bother to sign up for a class because I don't want to look stupid in front of other people trying to make watercolor work. By the way, I'm one of those. I was an art major in college for 1 year. And I remember doing a watercolor drawing, and my teacher came by and looked at it and started laughing. And she had a vow she would never laugh at anybody's work, but she started laughing at mine. And she said, I'm sorry, I can't help it. That's just, you know. And I never have done watercolor since. Actually, I learned Chinese brush painting long after that. But it's you know, even just thinking about taking Shari's class, you know, triggers off my aversion and my fears about, you know, ridicule and rejection and all that good stuff. So most of us won't even try new things because of that, right? Okay? We won't say go work at the booth at the Watershed Festival because, oh my God, I might have to talk to strangers about this church. That's scary. We won't join the choir because, ooh, I might have to sing. I've been told that for many people, public speaking is not the number one fear. Public singing is the number one fear. I have to come out of the shower. Okay? Are we willing to come out of the shower? Are we willing to come out of whatever we've been in, our comfort zone that we talked about last week, and start to expand and say, you know, I'm willing to experience more of life. And I'm willing to recognize that as I choose to, it manifests the way that I choose. It shows up with the consciousness, including the unconscious consciousness, the subconscious consciousness, if you will, that I bring to it. It shows up as I expect it to. And if it's showing up differently than I like, I need to change my expectation. Most of the time, we're out here trying to change it out here, right? Let's get a different president. Okay? Because the president is creating my reality and I don't like it. No, I don't care what president we put in the White House ever, that person is not creating your reality. They might have a small influence on it, but they're not creating your reality. Right? Okay? I'm not saying don't vote, by the way, I'm not saying that, and don't pay attention and don't, you know, do your best in that regard, but some people are looking to, you know, if we just get this person in the White House, it'll save us. It's what I call the savior of the, you know, country, you know, person. And we've all seen saviors of the country, right? And how they work. And they're never quite up to expectations, right? If I just meet the right man or woman, they'll save me. And we meet them, and 6 months later, the honeymoon's over, and oh my God, they're a human being. They leave the cap off the toothpaste, and they disagree with me on some things. They leave their socks on the floor. Thank God Cynthia's not here right now. She could talk about that. Are we willing to go beyond our own ideas of what it's like and say, I'm willing to have more and greater good than ever? Yes. I'm glad. Because you have to say yes. And you know, sometimes this is why I ask these questions. Sometimes just vibrate it in your body by saying it out loud, yes, to my good. Starts to move the process. There's something in your body that registers that. We have in some of the classes I teach, there's a physical release process we do with I release my belief in this, and I release my need for that, and I'm grateful God is this quality that I am. And we do it physically with that, because our bodies contain a whole lot of our choices, and we move our stuff. We move the stuff, if we can move the stuff at the cellular level of the body, if we can move the stuff at the emotional level, that's where we're holding on to it. See, the mind can change just like that. It takes the body and the emotions more time to go along with it, but they have to go along. That's the ship turning. We're turning that ship of consciousness, and our whole being is our thought process. Our whole beingness is what makes these choices. And so I can think it. This is why, how many of you have made a New Year's resolution? You had a wonderful thought, and 6 weeks later, you're not doing it? Because your body hasn't joined you in that particular resolution, right? I'm still going to be going to the gym. Those of you who have been around for a while know that I've been saying that for about 2 years since I've been here. I'm still going to be going to the gym.
And you are going to take water from me.
No, I'm not going to take water from it.
I tried.
Why? Because my body really likes chocolate and cake and ice cream and, and to, come home and just sit on the couch and after a hard day and stuff like that. And so until I get my body in the sync of doing that, we don't change. So it's the same thing, for all of our choices. Do we get our whole being in it? So I want to read a couple of quotes that in a dead universe, materialism makes sense, but we're not living in a dead universe. If the universe is unconscious and dead at its foundations, then and this is, a lot of us were trained this way, right? There's just matter. It's just a dead universe, rocks. That chair has no consciousness, right? Most of us kind of grew up believing this, okay? If the universe is unconscious and dead at its foundations, then each of us is the product of blind chance among materialistic forces. And there's a whole school of science that says that's who we are. We're just here by chance from blind forces. It's only fitting that we the living then exploit on our own behalf that which is not alive. If the universe is lifeless, it has no larger purpose or meaning, and neither does human existence. If we are separate beings in a lifeless universe, there are no deeper ethical or moral consequences to our actions beyond their immediate physical impacts. It's only natural, therefore, that we focus on consuming material things to minimize life's pains and maximize its comforts. How much can I buy, consume, to numb out, and to be safe? And that's that attitude. We know people who live like that, right? I love that bumper sticker, "He who dies with the most toys wins." Okay? That's all about that kind of a consciousness. How can I numb out? On the other hand, if the universe is conscious and alive, then we are the product of a deep design intelligence that infuses the entire cosmos. We shift from feelings of existential isolation in a lifeless universe to a sense of intimate communion with a living universe. If life is nested within life, then it is only fitting that we treat everything that exists as alive and worthy of respect. Our sense of meaningful connection expands to the entire community of life, including past, present, and future generations. Every action in a living universe is felt to have ethical consequences as it reverberates throughout the ecosystem of the living cosmos. The focus of life shifts from a desire for high consumption lifestyles, which are intended to provide both material pleasures and protection from an indifferent universe, toward sustainable and simple ways of living intended to connect us with a purposeful universe of which we are an integral part. In a living universe, it is only natural that people would choose simpler ways of living that afford greater time and opportunity for meaningful relationships, creative expression, and rewarding experiences. As we consciously explore our connection with a living universe, concern with material consumption will naturally tend to shift into the background of our lives. Why am I here? I'm here to give and receive love, to share that love, to share relationships, to express creatively, to have meaningful experiences. I'm not here to amass as much wealth as I can, or as much toys as I can, or as much stuff as I can. In a living universe, we respect each other and we live with compassion with each other. I invite you to take that journey this week. I'm going to invite you to do 3 different spiritual practices this week as you do that. The first is to become aware of your awareness with all life. And here's the thing, to become aware of our oneness with all life comes from the heart and the soul. It doesn't come from the intellect. The intellect may direct us down there, but the experience comes through the heart and the soul. And so I invite you to open up your heart this week. To open up your heart this week. To start to look at it and say, I'm willing to experience my oneness with all of this life. To have that experience. 2, ask myself the question, is what I'm saying improving on the silence? There's a wonderful Buddhist saying that, that does this. Is what I'm saying improving on the silence? And probably most of us would say a whole lot less if we would ask ourselves that question first. Here's this beautiful silence. Am I making it better? Am I improving on it? Let me give you a clue. If you're complaining, if you're gossiping, if you're talking negative and down, you're not improving on the silence, right? How can I lift it up to being greater? So act, speak, and think carefully because it impacts the universe. And then finally ask, where can I live in greater alignment with the oneness of all life? Where in my life, how in my life, can I start to live in greater alignment with the idea that we are one? Are there practices or things that I need to release? Are there practices or things that I need to begin to start to live in that consciousness? So that's our spiritual practice this week. Number 1, become aware of our oneness with life through the heart. Number 2, ask ourselves, pay attention, is what I'm saying improving on the silence? And number 3, where in my life can I bring myself into greater alignment with the idea that we are all one? Are you willing to play with that this week? Yes. Okay. Yeah, me too. So I'm going to close with a quote. This is from the book of Mirdad by the Russian author Mikhail Nimay. So think as if your every thought were to be etched in fire upon the sky for all and everything to see. For so, in truth, it is. So speak, as if the world entire were but a single ear, intent on hearing what you say. And so, in truth, it is. So do, as if your every deed were to recoil upon your head. And so, in truth, it is. So wish, as if you were the wish. And so, in truth, you are. Let's move into prayer. So knowing that there is this one infinite presence, and knowing that this presence is here for enjoyment, for joy, for love, for the fullness expression of life. And this infinite presence, being infinite, is all there is. There is nothing outside of it. And so we ourselves are one of it. We are individualized expressions of this beauty, of this love, of this life, of this intelligence. We are that. Whether we remember it or forget it, we are that. Always have been, always will be, are right now. And so I speak my word that we tap into that awareness more fully than ever before. We tap into how beautiful we are and how beautiful this world is. And that we have the choice to play where we want to in this infinite creative expression. And we choose high. We choose with wisdom. We choose with joy. We choose with love. To play in the bliss end of the divine. That is what we're all here to do. Sooner or later, we will all be doing this. As the reading from Ernest Holmes said, sooner or later, the universe will manifest its wholeness through all of us. We will remember and we will wake up. And I choose, and I invite all of us to choose to wake up more and more now. Not put it off for a couple more lifetimes, but do it now. Live it now. We wake up to this aliveness. We say yes to this aliveness, this joy, this enjoyment of life now. We allow ourselves to live with love and with compassion for each and every one of us. So that your joy is my joy. Your blessings are my blessings. We lift each other up. Together as a whole, we lift each other up. And for this I'm grateful. For each of us who is saying yes to this, for each of us who is waking up to this, for each of us who is taking on this practice, I'm so grateful. And I simply in that gratitude release this word into the law, into that essence, that force, that wisdom that knows how to manifest it into form and expression and experience in each of our lives in the most beautiful, positive, powerful, wonderful ways. And we say yes to that, and we affirm it by together saying, and so it is. Thank you.